Macarena. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you guys so much for joining me. Sorry, it's been a... I know I've been really like. All right, I promised my daughter that we were going to watch something later on, so let's just speed this up, shall we? Nah, we're not gonna speed this up. We're gonna take our time and do it right. Do it right. All right, so I'm about to jump on board with this big conversation that everybody's talking about that is like literally overdone and overdusted, but I'm gonna get into it anyway. And if you're looking at the thumbnail, you already know what it's about, so let's just get right into it. Without trying to expose who I am personally too much, I I want to talk a little bit about this topic from the perspective of the power of honey. Let me hang on a sec. Hang on a second. The power of seduction, right? Because we know, or maybe we don't know about Dr. Robert's study about the art of seduction and how that has its the word power is so poignantly used because having that power naturally, as do a lot of women, not I wouldn't say all, but a lot of women have that power to seduce, um in a way that is extremely dangerous to the male species. And I want to say that this is something um that is hang on a second, guys. Let me just try to like gather my thoughts here. It's addictive for women to have that level of that ability. And the better looking a woman is, the harder it is for her to walk away from that power. A lot of women who, a lot of women who, a lot of women who feel like they can get a man to be intimate with them, feel like they can get a man to have a relationship with them. And it is very true that a lot of the times men can confuse the the access to her um with having to have a certain level of relating to her, right? You know, this is where the F boy personality comes into place, or the friends with benefits comes into place, and all these new complications, situationships that have resulted as the lines of relationships have started to blur. I will say that based on some of the research and studies, it has increased our sexual liberation, which means that we can choose the who, the where, the why, or the when. But the act itself has not really improved the level of satisfaction that we get out of said act. You know what I'm saying? Like, do I gotta spell it out for you guys? 85% of women don't actually get a climatic experience from penetration. Stuff like that. I will link the studies down below because I remember hearing that for the first time at the tender age of 15. Just like a by the way, I think I was taking a pre-psych class, and this was one of the statistics that was being studied. So that's why I know that it wasn't like that. It's not what you think. And so yeah, I heard that thinking like, well, what the heck I gotta look, what am I doing? Like, what? Can y'all invent a pill for that too, please? Because this doesn't sound like, why are women doing this if they're not actually getting anything out of it except the attention and the male gaze? And that's what I was looking up because I don't actually, I'm gonna be right honest with you, I'm not entirely familiar with this is the first thing that comes up. I'm not entirely familiar with this feminist theory. It's this what Wikipedia says. I'll leave it in the description. The feminist theory, the male gaze is the act of depicting women on the and the world in visual arts and literal form from a masculine heterosexual perspective that represents women as sexual objects for pleasure of the heterosexual male viewer. Now, depicting women and the world in the visual arts and in literature from a male's perspective and represents women as sexual objects. I feel that this is a load of crap. And I'm going to explain to you why. And I'll try to do it very quickly because I know I just made a long pause in the middle of my video and I won't be able to edit it later on. So I digress. I feel this is a load of crap because I have realized that while women want to be equal, it is very, 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 very evident that when it comes to the power of femininity, whether it be toxic or otherwise, the sexual energy that women portray towards men that is extremely visual is something that women are extremely cognizant from a very young age as a power, like a superpower that we have over men, that they cannot help but to participate in. And we enjoy this attention depending on the female more or less. Some women enjoy it more than others. Even the ones who get on social media and complain about being stared and gawked at in their gym clothes at the gym with their butt cheeks being wedgied by their very small and extremely tight clothes don't move that out. Stop right there. You stop right now. Can be grateful for not being invisible by men because there are women that exist who do not get that kind of attention. And it's almost like do I want to say a catch 22 that is used when it's convenient for her benefit to have this attention available to her and still on top of that tell her friends like bragging rights, right? Oh, my husband's always calling me. Oh my God, guys are always staring at me. And then it's all this pick me ripple effect of y'all. I'm giving you inside information here. So it's a good thing that I'm moving away because they gonna come for me after I tell this story. This is just a ripple effect that is all designed to direct more attention towards me. Not me, Nehanda Helmker, but me, the person telling the story about how I'm being docked at and catcalled and stared at, like sight through it, like be happy, be grateful, because some of us are running out here being completely invisible now. If you've ever been extremely pregnant and fat, like I was, okay then. I mean, there were still people who were just like, "Oh, you need some help. Oh, you're so pregnant. You're so cute." Oh, you know. But some women just, yeah, they get pregnant, and that's the end of that gawking and hawking and all of that other male gazing. Ain't none of that happening. It's over. Bye bye. Done. See ya. Sayonara. And so this is a lot of crap because I know that women who want to say, who can afford to say that their looks do not play a significant role in who they are, have never had to be invisible a day in their lives. I was anecdotally listening to a podcast, watching a podcast, where there were two scientists talking about some very specific, important information. One was a woman and one was a man. And the woman had happened to be a gynecologist. And that's all I'm going to say because y'all are probably going to know who I'm talking about. And she'd clearly gotten some augmentation done on her upper body. And they might have, it was clearly noticeable, even though you could just see like how much you can see of me right now. It was noticeable that they were there and that they were done. Like it wasn't, it wasn't necessarily natural looking. And I know that because she's a very small frame person, upper body small frame like myself, and she kept doing this, you know? But she was also, all right, now the man she was talking to is in a relationship. I know that because I've been following him for some time now. And she and him were talking and she kept doing this. And I thought to myself in the beginning as a woman, like, oh, maybe her back hurts because those things look real heavy. And then I realized, why did she talk to a serious talk about like science, biological stuff? You know, like why we're talking about medicine? Why are you wearing this? This isn't like a Manosphere podcast where all the OnlyFans come up and talk about like, I need a man who makes 400K. Like, you are a doctor, a medical professional. Like, why are you dressed like that? All right. So she wore this very thin, like camisole looking cardigan and then like a nude. It was probably like my complexion. She's white, and then she wore like a brown neutral tank top. And the tank top was like an extra small. And she kept doing this. And I felt completely, absolutely, horridly triggered because while she was dressed like that and talking about things like patriarchy and like female equality, if there were two men, like if the guy, because the guy was a pretty good looking guy, really well dressed, and kind of like he does a lot of weightlifting. This is a doctor that does a lot of weightlifting. And so he has, he's bulked up on his shoulders and his pecs. He wasn't there in like a tank top, like trying to like do like this or like this. He was talking to her from colleague to colleague. It got so bad, y'all, anecdotally speaking, and this all goes back to body count and to female sexuality. I'll try to pull them into two in this one segment. It got so bad that she started talking about some exercises and works that he had done and she had read about it. And so she was like, yeah, I was listening to your such and such, and I was like, yeah, teach me how to such and such. Teach me, like, completely. I almost vomited in my mouth a little bit. Completely disgusting behavior for a medical professional who was not even like, I know y'all are listening to me thinking like, well, how old was she? This woman had grown children. She might have been 50 years old, right? And so she wasn't old because I'm 40, but she wasn't like young either. Like her behavior was completely inappropriate and completely misplaced. And it made me feel very uncomfortable to watch that kind of behavior come out of somebody who was obviously a feminist, who should have been wearing a bloody suit and tie if we're all equals and my sexuality plays no role in my ability to be competent in my profession, while at the same time talking about being treated differently in going to school, in going to medical school because she was a woman. But when you act like that, is it any wonder that she provoked this man? And I thought I was crazy. Like, is this really happening right now? Or did I miss something? So I'm scrolling through the comments to see if anybody else picked up on it. And there may have been one or two people who think a little bit too much into situations, who were also female, who were the only ones who recognized it. And that is why I'm saying that when it comes to body count, women know, women know, women know. I have said this before. We know. We know what we do. We know how vulnerable men are. That if on the right time, the right or the wrong situations, he can't run, he can't say no enough or run fast enough away from a situation where he puts himself in a vulnerable state. And that is why a lot of women, average and below, can have a high body count because it is the only power that some women have because they don't have that male gaze that women who are attractive who have it want to discourage other women from getting there because they feel like if they get that, then it is not so much a rare currency like it used to be, only reserved for women who look a certain way. And so there's this invention of how it's so disgusting and hindering, but it is a key and essential point of femininity. Toxic femininity, if you may, in my opinion, but femininity nonetheless. And so the chase of the body count is really an addiction of male attention that we ourselves are not even willing to admit we need because it is the only sense of control that we have when it comes to feeling empowered about our bodies. And we are the ones who lose out the most out of this experience because, as we can see here, just reading a little bit about what the effects are of high body count, besides the obvious higher risk of STDs and HIV and AIDS and STIs, is your feeling of worthiness. While you may feel a short, um, still it comes down to sexual partner, someone who has had. Some people see it as a bragging right, while others see it as a way of judging someone's worthiness. However, it is just a personal preference and there is no right or wrong answer. Now, if you know a lot of people who have had high body count, you will see that this affects them. This affects directly the result of how a person feels about the relationship they're in if they have had more experiences to compare themselves to in a longer run. And also, it causes a lot of confusion when it comes to our sex and sexuality, where we tend to only operate from a place of our sexuality, like the young lady, like the woman in the podcast that I was listening to, done. Woman had so much going for her, so much experience, so much education, and yet she was still leading with that one element of her life that wasn't even relevant or important to the conversation. I could say way more on this. As a matter of fact, I probably will say more on this, but of course, I got to go handle some of my private life business. I will see you guys in the next one. Please make sure to leave your comments, concerns, and questions down below. This is a hot topic for another time. Then we want to continue the conversation, so make sure that you hit me up. And of course, make sure to stay safe and stay free.